Welcome back, one and all. My name is Chris, and I will be your digital tech trainer for this tutorial video. Today's topic, we will be covering the remaining types of malware threats and their terminology. And now for something truly scary. Fileless malware refers to a cyber attack technique that uses existing software, allowed trusted applications, and authorized commands from operating systems or users to carry out malicious activities. Here, there is no files defined on a computer with a scan, so it leaves no immediate trace of its existence behind, and thus tries to avoid detection by traditional antivirus security suites. Fileless malware sneaks in without using traditional executable files, or EXEs, or even downloads via email attachments. As first level of entry attack like traditional malware. Instead, fileless malware often comes from hidden or sneaky web links and hides in computer memory or other difficult to detect locations. In other words, it can be written directly to random access memory, or RAM, the computer's short-term memory, rather than to hard drive space, the long-term memory, as an actual file. Here, it launches its malicious attack from the short-term memory. Two examples of this kind of vector might be malware code being injected via RAM into already installed applications like Microsoft Word, Adobe Flash, Adobe PDF Reader, a web browser, or JavaScript, and using vulnerabilities in their code to execute a task, being stored in their files. Operating system functions or default programs like Microsoft Windows Management Instrument and Microsoft PowerShell scripting languages that typically would be considered highly trusted are also targeted to get scripts to run remotely from another computer. A keystroke logger, or keylogger as the term is often abbreviated, is a form of malware that once it is installed on your system will monitor and record every key you press using your keyboard. Think about how often you type and what exactly it is you type, and you will realize why keyloggers are so dangerous. Passwords, bank account numbers, credit card numbers, and card security codes, emails, phone numbers, form information are all valuable targets for this method of malware. With a keylogger, all of the keystrokes behind this information are recorded and sent remotely to whoever wrote the keylogger malware. Since the release of Microsoft Windows 8 in 2012, touchscreen personal computers have become much more prevalent, introducing the regular use of on-screen keyboards, which afford users an alternative keystroke input method. However, this gave rise to easily exploitable points of entry for keyloggers, as with sales of wireless keyboards. The latter method doesn't even have to install malware on your PC, just hijack the wireless signal sent from the keyboard to the computer. It can be as simple as having a key sweeper, which I discussed in one of my previous videos, disguised as a USB wall charger with a Wi-Fi card and USB flash drive. It's simply plugged into a wall in that coffee shop, airport, library, or other public Wi-Fi venue that you are working in. If you're still with me, you're doing very well. We've arrived at the logic bomb, or sometimes referred to as slag code. It is a string of malicious code used to cause harm to a network or computer when the programmed conditions are met. This could be when a certain date or time is met, a particular record is deleted from a system, or the launching of an infected software application. The term bomb is used given the similarity that a bomb only explodes when triggered by a fuse or specific event. I've also heard the phrase logic mine used, although this may just be regional or archaic, similar to performing a task and treading on a hidden landmine. The level of destruction caused by a logic bomb can vary greatly, and the set of conditions able to set one off is nearly unlimited. However, often the aim is purely data corruption, file deletion, or hard drive clearing. These are often revenge attacks, not from an outside source breaking into a secured system, but cyber sabotage from a person within an organization who has access to sensitive data. Say if an employee believes they might be fired, they can create a hidden logic bomb that they defuse each day or week, and that they alone are the only ones capable of shutting off. That way, once they are no longer within the organization, the attack can begin, either instantly or after a predetermined time period. Mobile malware is malicious software specifically written to attack mobile devices, such as smartphones, tablets, smartwatches, etc. It really isn't a form of malware all on its own, just the targeted devices that sets this one apart, and it can take any of the other forms we have or will discuss, but it is worth mentioning to think about. Researchers at Checkpoint, the website given here, examined cyber attacks in the first half of 2019 and found that those targeting smartphones and other mobile devices have risen by 50% compared with the last year. The findings have been outlined in their Cyber Attack Trends of 2019 mid-year report. This report suggests one of the key reasons for the sharp rise is increased use of mobile banking applications. This is seen black hats following the money and increasingly distributing malware designed to steal payment data, login credentials, and ultimately funds from victims' bank accounts. Basically, as the world fills with more technologies around us connected to the internet and networks, these smaller mobile devices and others like smart homes, smart fridges, Alexa or Google Home, cars, and more are increasingly becoming targets for those of us working on the fly and away from a standard desktop or laptop computer. I hope you have your bucket of bait ready, 'cause it's phishing time. In a typical phishing scam, cybercriminals send out emails which appear to come from a legitimate business, social contact, or other trusted sender, or even an antivirus program provider. The aim, as normal, is to steal personal information, bank account data, etc. Feel free to take a look at this example and the others listed below. If you need more time, feel free to pause and continue when you're ready. Other routes of attack come from instant message windows like on Facebook, Twitter feeds, phone text messages, or pop-up windows, but all try to social engineer the user to click on a link provided. Even links directing users to enter personal information at a fake website, which matches the look and feel of the legitimate site, is a common method. In terms of pop-up windows, fraudulent companies frequently use paid search ads on search engines to advertise their support services or to host bogus advertisements. When searching online, it is possible to receive different search results based on the search engine you are using. Yet another preferred method is unsolicited calls, claiming to be from Norton Antivirus Support, or any organization really, ready to fix an issue they have detected with your computer for money. These cold calls are typically done by groups of individuals working together, usually from abroad, and sometimes even with soundtracks of offices or call centers playing in the background. This sub-method is labeled as vishing, from the terms voice and phishing. Simply put, never trust unsolicited calls from the following or any banks, antivirus companies, Microsoft, Apple, Amazon, etc. If you receive a call from anyone, even for a survey, kindly ask to hang up and call a number you find yourself to verify. Don't trust incoming calls, and always call out to a listed number you can verify for yourself. This is perhaps one of the most terrifying forms of malware, usually because it catches you off guard, often alone, and puts a lot of pressure on you. Ransomware is a type of malware attack in which the attacker locks and encrypts the victim's data, user access, or even just certain files, and then demands a payment, often to an offshore bank account or via less traceable cryptocurrencies, to unlock and decrypt the data, if they ever do. The name obviously comes from the English word ransom, meaning a sum of money or other payment demanded for the release of a prisoner, in this case your device or files. The attack has multiple stages, starting with some method of infection, direct download from a website link, fake file attachments, etc., followed next by execution, where something triggers the malware's start, such as opening a movie file, text document, or other masked exe file type. Once the program is up and running, it encrypts a user's login credentials, their files, etc., sometimes by just changing a password or activating new security methods with new passwords, which might work right away or first require a restart to take effect. Once your system is encrypted or you are logged off and unable to gain entry again, the system will find a way to inform the user they have been victimized and direct them to a method of payment. Meanwhile, the ransomware will often delete itself now that the encryption is active to avoid leaving evidence behind. This is the cleanup stage. Once a payment to the perpetrator has been fulfilled following the instructions provided, it may take a few minutes, hours, etc., and a restart of the device for the attacker to confirm the payment and release the computer via remote access command, or even just emailing you the new password. These attacks rely heavily on pressure and scare tactics, such as loud sounds, countdown timers, and flashing screens. I told you we would get to the root of the problem. Well, in terms of malware, the term Rootkit originally comes from the Unix operating system, where the word root is used to describe a user with the highest possible level of access privileges, similar to the administrator in Windows. The word kit refers to the software that grants root-level access to the machine. Cyber criminals use rootkits to hide and protect malware on a computer. The rootkit itself isn't necessarily harmful. What's dangerous is the various forms of malware inside them or installed later. Malware in a rootkit can steal data and take over a system for malicious purposes. All the typical purposes discussed so far, with the aim of remaining undetected and being incapable of easy deletion. They can even alter data reports from a system to avoid detection. Installed in the core operating system and computer, rootkits sometimes require reinstallation of the operating system in order to clear away. They can block some antivirus and anti-malware software, rendering them ineffective, in part because rootkits activate before an operating system or most programs boot up. Rootkits are unable to spread by themselves and must be either downloaded, hide in software, or through email phishing scams, to name just a few routes. Here's a short one, and very similar to the keyloggers we discussed earlier. A screen scraper is a form of malware capable of taking screenshots for gathering data from the visible desktop to send them back to its controller. It usually involves collecting screen display data from one application and translating it so that another application can display it. Here's a simple image of one in action. Spyware is a broad category of malware designed to secretly observe activity, collect data, and possibly disseminate the information without the user's consent. In fact, we have already talked about numerous variants of spyware above: adware, keyloggers, screen scrapers, and some phishing attacks, just to name a few. As you can see, many forms of malware actually overlap into several categories, or utilize more than one methodology to perform their intended goal. Initially, spyware was designed to help customize advertising on just certain websites. based on which web pages you visited on a specific company's site. Advertising was to be changed specifically to be tailored for you. While this is very common today, these same concepts have been twisted for sinister purposes. It all boils down to the same sinister malevolence, whether it is adware watching which websites you visit so it can promote products to try and get you to buy, less intrusive tracking cookies sending marketing data to a corporate server, stalkerware installed on mobile phones so the owner of the phone can be tracked by a third party, or stealware, which waits for you to go to an online shopping site that awards credits to others that send traffic their way for a sale, and intercepts a request to take credit for sending a user there. Spyware is very common and a profitable avenue for black hats. Spyware has the broadest variation and makes up the largest portion of malware out there, next to general viruses. Like other forms, it infects hosts through any number of ways. A link that leads to a malicious website, links or attachments in emails, text messages, pop-up windows in a browser, and ads on web pages. Poisoned links have also been known to appear in Google search results. Sometimes you don't need to click on a malicious link to get to an infected website. This is most commonly done through an infected ad delivered to legitimate websites through legitimate ad networks, also known as malvertising. On occasion, ne'er-do-wells embed malicious code on legitimate websites that can infect a visitor just by landing on the page. Users, too, can be enticed to download spyware. A developer might tout their program as a useful addition to a software library, but it can contain spyware. In some cases, deleting the software from your computer will get rid of the application, but the spyware will be left behind and continue snooping on you. A Trojan horse or Trojan, the name derived from the ancient Greek story of the deceptive Trojan horse that led to the fall of the city of Troy, is a type of malware that is often disguised as legitimate software or uses social engineering to gain your trust. Trojans can be employed by cybercriminals and black hats trying to gain access to users' systems. People sometimes think of a Trojan as a virus or a worm, our last two topics, but it is really neither. The three are not synonymous. Trojans are an umbrella term for malware delivery and have many varied kinds. A Trojan can be like a Swiss Army knife acting as standalone malware, or as a tool for other activities, such as delivering code, communicating with the attacker, or opening up a secure system for breaching. Trojans like to infect by being downloaded as part of a bundle of software. You think you're downloading one piece of software, but it's really two or three, the Trojan concealing itself upon download and installation. Often, they use the following vectors as downloads. Promises of an illegal free copy of a piece of software can be enticing, but the cracked software or activation key generator may conceal a Trojan attack. Links to free TV show downloads or the latest blockbuster can often leave a Trojan tagging along, especially if they ask you to download a certain video codec first. Infected attachments, third-party variants of free games like Solitaire or Bejeweled, screensavers, and even offerings of different fonts to be downloaded are all potential pitfalls. A virus is a file infector which can self-replicate and spread by attaching itself to another program. Like their biological namesakes, viruses attach themselves to clean files, and then infect other clean files through this foothold. They usually appear as an executable file, an exe, or are an executable file masquerading as another type of file extension, .doc, .xlsx, .avi, just to name a few. Some computer viruses are programmed to harm your computer by damaging programs, deleting files, or reformatting the hard drive. Others simply replicate themselves or flood a network with traffic, making it impossible to perform any internet activity. Even less harmful computer viruses can significantly disrupt your system's performance. sapping computer memory and causing frequent computer crashes. Their goal is almost always disruption and destruction, just to cause chaos, and can be both specific targeted attacks on individuals or companies, like logic bombs, or very much at random. If your computer shows signs of slow performance, erratic behavior, unexplained data loss, or frequent crashes and freezes, chances are you have a virus. To protect yourself, use an antivirus protection suite. Avast, AVG, Avira, Bitdefender, Komodo, Defender Pro, ESET, Kaspersky, McAfee, Panda Security, Norton. These are just a few of the trusted name brands out there. I use some of the free basic programs on my systems and Pro on others, and the free ones work just as well as the paid-for subscriptions. Ensuring that firewalls are present and active is another great tool. For those of you with Windows 10, I suggest looking into Spybot Anti-Beacon as well, something I hope to have a video covering in the near future. Get anti-spyware software as well. These are not to be confused with antivirus software companies named above. Anti-spyware software doesn't scan for and remove active viruses, but can be a great preventative tool, removing dormant viruses and other malware before they activate. Malwarebytes is perhaps one undisputed king here, and Spybot's Search and Destroy is another healthy choice. Other things to be mindful of: update your operating system regularly to remove known vectors for infection, and have vulnerabilities patched. Increase your browser security settings or mail settings for any downloads and attachments so they are actively scanned. Avoid questionable websites. Carefully evaluate free software and file sharing applications before downloading them. Don't open messages from unknown senders or Nigerian princes, and immediately delete messages or files you suspect to be compromised. Computer worms are similar to viruses in that they replicate functional copies of themselves and can cause the same type of damage. In contrast to viruses, which require the spreading of an infected host file, worms are standalone software and do not require a host program or human help to propagate. A worm enters a computer through a vulnerability in the system, typically in a network, and takes advantage of file transport or information transport features on the system, allowing it to travel unaided to other devices. Before widespread use of networks, computer worms were spread through infected storage media, such as floppy diskettes, which, when mounted on a system, would infect the computer and any other storage devices connected to the victim's system. Today, USB flash drives are still a common vector for computer worms, where they are frequently found in drop attacks. Worms often use parts of an operating system that are automatic and invisible to the user, meaning it is common for worms to be noticed only when their uncontrolled replication consumes system resources, slowing or halting other tasks. Just like with viruses, worms are most easily defeated by making sure your operating system is up to date and patched, that you have a proper antivirus suite installed and running, and that you keep firewalls up and active. That's all, folks. Thanks for watching, and if you liked this video, please share and pass it on. Hopefully we will have more future tutorials covering a variety of different technological devices and topics made available. I'm Chris, and safe journeys.